that one. Good morning and welcome back to Chet Chats. Happy I was informed it is the second Wednesday of October. I hope you are having a great Wednesday so far. It's actually still really hot over here in the West Coast, so hopefully you guys are actually experiencing real fall over wherever you are. As always, we have our special shout-outs and thank yous to give, so I will pass it to Dad.
Good morning, Shy.
Good morning, Father.
How you doing, young lady?
I'm present today.
Jesse, I'm glad to see that you present, enjoying your presence with your presence. You get that one? Well,
yes.
You got that one. I that for the old one I told you. Anyway, I'd like to give shout outs to our sponsorship as well as everyone that continue to watch the Chet Chats podcast. I'm changing lives at homes. JAlexJules.com, HefeHair.com, HefeHairStudio.com, KnottedTogether.com, LACruiser.com, LyricPartyGame.com, PremierTagAndTitle.com, and last but not least, Synergy.com. Thank you for all your sponsorships and everything y'all do to help continue the show to go forward. What's up? What's on your mind today?
Always lots of things.
Absolutely.
Today's
Today's
topic, Dad, that I have chosen is racism. Now, because this is a very big topic per usual,
right?
And
you always do that.
Not able to completely dissect in the amount of time that our show is. I'll just start again with like basic, I guess, questions. So the year you were born, I'm not calling you old, but you're older than I am.
I am older than you.
Was not actually very much longer after segregation had just ended, like historically.
Well, you mean the amendments getting passed?
Well, segregation in general, yeah.
Right.
So when it was passed, and then you weren't born long after it ended, like after it was only blacks or whites, etc. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess I get what you're saying to agree. Well,
like year-wise that you were born.
Right, 68.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that.
It was not.
A lot of my friends did not make it to this far.
It was not long after
right.
segregation had quote unquote ended.
Right.
So my question for you is, because you have lived many a years longer than I have you seen, I guess, either like a shift in racism? Do you believe that racism has gotten better or has it gotten worse? Like, what is your opinion?
My opinion first, you normally tackle the word racism.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I felt like that was one that.
Right. Well, if people don't know, I think is a discrimination and prejudice against another group of peoples believing that your group is more superior.
Yes.
Is that correct, roughly?
Yes.
Yes. So you're asking me, does racism still exist today?
What's your opinion? Do you think that it
in my opinion, yes, it does exist today. It still exists today. And it continues to exist more on the economical side than any side, in my opinion. And the economical side is way more important for the development of other people to continue to grow, in my opinion.
Why the economical side?
Because a lot of things have been in place through policies that deny people equal access to these things. And so that's more racism, in my opinion, than any racism. And don't get me wrong, the complexity of skin definitely plays a part in racism. But the racism that I'm referring to more economical part of it. And that's one of the things Martin Luther King, when reading his speeches at the end and all, they avoid those speeches because he talked about equality and economic growth. And I don't think that exists totally in America as of today, in particular, since we live in America. One of the things that I know that's happening, redlining, when it comes to you living in certain areas. Also, interest rates are a little high for people of color. And the reason they say that is based upon a score, FICO score.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
You can explain it.
Okay, it's a score that they use to rate your credit rating amongst you individually.
Okay.
So most times people that are illiterate or lack of understanding, their score is not as high. So then they put that part on reasoning why they're not giving out certain loans and whatnot like that to a degree. So I think racism, yes, it continues, to happen today. It might not be as prevalent as it used to be as far as physical racism, meaning lynchings, You know, I wasn't born when lynchings was happening, but I was born during a time where certain neighborhoods we couldn't go into, and then they would cause an actual fight in certain neighborhoods growing up. And we couldn't go in their neighborhood. And when I say we, it's people of color could not go in their neighborhood, and people of non-color, they couldn't come in our neighborhood at that particular time. So yes, do racism exist? Absolutely. And in my opinion, one of the biggest part of racism that exists is the economic part of it. And we're not equally economically. And back then, it's sad to say that people of color are making way more money than they used to make, but have very little now, as far as owning obtainable access to things.
Okay.
Like back in the day, it was over 20 banks, right? Black-owned banks. Now I don't believe it's one. If it is one, please let me know. They try to say it's one in Chicago and one in Maryland, but the one in Maryland is not 51% owned. Harbor Bank is not 51% owned by ethnic, of different ethnicity. It is 51% owned by another ethnicity, but not 51% owned by blacks.
Got it.
And if I'm wrong, people please check my information, because it's been some time since I looked these things up, because I have been in the rat race of life myself to a degree of late. So,
well, my question then is, what's the difference between racism and discrimination then? Because does racism have categories? Because it seems like, in your opinion, that it does have categories, that there is a financial racism, and then there is a based off of skin tone racism. So what, I guess, is what you're describing, is that racism or is it discrimination?
Well, I like racism to me, as I've described, is when you set out purposely to not include others in the process.
Discrimination be?
That would be part of discrimination. Could you look it up, please? Thank you. You help me out.
Discrimination is the unjust or prejudiced treatment of different categories of people or things. So,
are they synonyms? Forgive us, people, because she always asks hard questions to me. Not hard, but interesting subject matters to me. So
racism is the belief in the superiority of one race over another. It may also mean prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism.
So they intertwine with one another to a degree.
Sort of, but they're still different.
So do you believe racism exists in your era?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also think that there are a lot of unbiased prejudices. So that's why I don't necessarily.
Could you elaborate, please?
Yeah, sure. So, for instance, being a woman and then being a woman of color, it's in the work field that I am in. It's like there are a lot of people who don't want to work with me because they feel as though I'm not, quote unquote, smart enough. So it's like I experience that type of discrimination. I think that's discrimination, but not necessarily racism. But then, yes, I've also always gone to a primarily white institution for school. So I was always the 5% or the lesser percent of the student body who made up the non-white children. So I do think that racism still exists. And I believe that on a grand scheme of things, social media sheds a lot of light on, for instance, I talk about a lot, but police brutality. That's a lot, in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with the race of the person who is being detained or the person who is being killed. Exactly. Okay. Yes, so I do think it still exists. Okay. I don't know, because I'm not as old as you, so I don't really know necessarily if it has gotten better or if it has gotten worse, but I do know, for me, the first instance that I really noticed how massive, I guess, the issue was when Freddie Gray died, and that was because it was covered on all across social media. CNN. So so for me, it's that was the first real eye-opening situation with police brutality, and then from there, it only got, in my opinion, it only got worse, or there was a lot more coverage on it.
On it, right? Because I don't think it stopped since the beginning of policing as it exists in America.
Right. So, obviously it has happened before, because they did a whole cover. There's a cover on Times in 1968, I think, that looked exactly how Baltimore looked when they had the riots.
The riots, right, in California and all over.
So, I don't know. So, I guess it's eye-opening to see from that moment until, now that, yes, and I think that it has. I don't think it's gotten better. I don't know if worse is the correct word to use, but I definitely think that it's still extremely relevant.
Please, people, feel free to comment, give us your opinions as well as your facts. And again, like we always state on this show, we do not have all the answers. We just try to bring things to light so we can have dialogue between us. And anybody that feel that they want to participate, please feel free to participate, inbox us, or get in direct contact with us so we can make it happen. Because again, it's open dialogue, and we like to resolve on this particular podcast. We like to get solutions and talk about subject matters that hopefully will open the eye up for people to have another look at it and say, hey, how can we tackle this if it does exist? And I personally believe that racism still exists. I mean, because if it didn't exist, we would just start calling each other human beings. I think we wouldn't start having so many different categories of what type of human being we are. We would just say, you're a human being and you have these qualities or don't have these qualities, and move forward from that. That's just my opinion. However, we seem to get stuck on certain aspects of a human being, whether it be height, weight, size, ethnicity. We get stuck in that part a lot of times, and then from that part is a snowball effect, in my opinion, that continues to occur. One of the main things when I say racism that still exists, because if it didn't exist, we would have equal representation in all aspects of everybody within this country, and I'm only speaking about this country. Meaning, it's about 375 million Americans, somewhere around that, live in the United States. I think it's about 14% people of color, and then the other percentage, I don't know exactly. However, we don't have representation in that area as it relates to all aspects of life, meaning job-wise, meaning politics, meaning, so I do believe if equal representation should happen, I do believe racism will cease. However, equal representation doesn't happen because some people, in my opinion, believe that they are superior over others.
So,
yeah,
I
really believe that some people really believe that, I think, that they are superior over others. And then it's proven that intellect is not stopped at one particular group of people. Intellect, it goes throughout all groups of people. It's just whether you choose to obtain intellect or born with something, in my opinion, or born with it. How you feel?
My question though.
I apologize. I ain't mean to stop you from your question.
Oh, no, it was that, do you think that race is like a man-created thing?
Absolutely. They've proven that in studies with children growing up. They've done that in plenty of studies. That's a man-made thing. And for what reason, I don't know why. Because for some odd reason, if you take the pigmentation out of a person, mm-hmm. you have basically the same organs. You have basically, whether female or male, you basically bleed the same type of oxygen in your bloodstream, so forth and so on. So yes, I truly believe that racism was a built thing. I think it was taught. I truly believe racism was taught. And then economically, how they then want to stay superior over people, it just kept growing from there. And then some people really wake up believing that they're better than a person, not on education or not on intellect, but just on the complexity of skin tone.
Yeah.
So that I really believe that does exist today. It continues to exist. And really, those are myths, in my opinion.
So my question would be, how do you, I guess, deconstruct racism? So if, in your opinion, it has not gotten better since the time, I guess, you were like my age or younger.
No,
then it's probably,
in my personal opinion, is got more manageable.
Okay, but
I
then
don't think it's gotten more better because, as you can see, with our current leadership, they will say anything. Yeah. And not held accountable for saying anything. And really, it brings like the Charlottesville incident that I can think of off the top of my head. Instead of them bringing a resolve to that, it just got pushed out the news. And I believe a lot of outlets continue to perpetrate these things to have them keep going on and have them keep, moving forward with their personal agenda. Because if the agenda, whatever the agenda may be, if it doesn't match the few select percentile, then it gets discarded. But if it does match the percentile that's representing, it continues to go forward.
So then if you don't believe that it has gotten, I guess, like better, it's only become manageable, then it would be projected essentially like as a as a hypothesis that it was only going to get worse with time, or not necessarily better with
Well,
time.
I can't say that, because you have some group of people that really understand that we're all in this world called Earth as one.
Okay.
Even though we might not manage it that way, but you have a lot of people, in my opinion, believe that we are all equal and just trying to make a better way for oneself, one family, one friends, and then, community, so forth and so on. So I don't think personally that that people don't care, right? I don't think that. I just think that people don't know how to go about giving a resolve to it without giving up what they call the word power.
Okay.
Because for some odd reason, people like to be powerful over others.
Yeah.
Some people do. I mean, it's evident, because if it didn't, the laws would reflect it. The way we handle things would reflect it. From the judicial system, from housing system, from education system, all these institutions will be aligned for the betterment of all, but they're not aligned for the betterment of all.
So then my next question then, I guess, would be like, how do you get to that point? And is it possible? I mean, anything is possible, but realistically, is it possible to get to the point where, I guess, racism isn't as prevalent, or that everyone is treated whatever equally actually means?
Equally, right.
So I guess it's more of if we keep putting people in power who, in my opinion, I'll start here. So in my opinion, it's like people who are in power don't always necessarily agree with the other person who's also in power's belief. Meaning, like, I could go in and I am I believe that everyone should be treated equally. You could also be in the same system, like in that 1 percentile or in the control of power, but not believe that people should be treated equally. So if we're both in that, but the majority of the people who are also in power believe what you believe, then my opinions are essentially like pushed to the side or swayed, because I have to agree with whatever the majority says is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
That's basically how the Constitution was
then,
written. And the sidebar, when the Constitution was written, slavery was still going on.
Correct.
So that lies the situation.
Then it's
right
like, how
there.
do you? I guess
physical slavery was still going on.
How do you dismantle what I believe, and I think what a lot of people would believe? How would you dismantle like the negative components of the people who are in power? Like, how do you bring more equalness, or more like, I don't know like the actual words I'm trying to say right now, but it's like, how do you
level the playing field, perhaps?
Maybe, or like, I guess, how do you just make it better? Like, how, if racism has always, in your lifetime, in your existence, has always been a thing, like, how do you get rid of that?
Well, it's reprogramming mind thoughts. Basically, what we always talk about is reprogramming your self-thought, in my opinion, is reprogramming your educational look on life. It's reprogramming your literacy on life. It's just a lot of reprogramming has to be done, not just by one group of people, but by all group of people. In my opinion. And so if you reprogram your thought patterns and you reprogramming to a different wavelength, then you will get a different outlook, because all people aren't good, all people aren't bad.
Yeah.
I don't believe good, as they use the word good and bad, starts with a particular race. I just believe it's a group of people, and the group of people in all are good and bad. It doesn't have to be, to me, race based. So as they use the word good and bad. So to answer your question, is what we talk about all the time is the mindset. Is reprogramming the mindset to see the bigger picture and understanding, in my opinion, because I believe in God, that you first should serve God, then yourself, then you're equal man, and so forth and so on. And when I mean serve yourself, is have an understanding of yourself. Know that your self-worth is high. Know that you should want to be the most intelligent person in the room. And if you're not the most intelligent person in the room, get with the people that are intelligent so you can continue to become intelligent. And that's one of the things I think can help. I think we had to get our mindset. I mean, economically, we had to change that playing field because it's not even nowhere close.
I think we need more new minds in positions of power, because I feel like a lot of the, and I could be completely wrong and completely ignorant to a lot of the things, but I feel that a lot of times it's like we're basing things off of old things that happened like years and centuries, which I've mentioned before. It's like, if the fact that we have to remake laws or remake certain things or rewrite it means that clearly
something was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did it, because my thought was, even, I know the Constitution was written in 1776 and whatnot. What about if our Constitution is totally outdated because of the time now, and we get a group of people like they did back then to rewrite the Constitution instead of then keep amending? Because obviously, if you have the amendment to say you're a human being now, that surely shows you something that's wrong.
Yeah.
You have an amendment stating that certain us are human beings. So right there, that's beyond my understanding as it relates. So if that be the case, what do you think about potentially rewriting the Constitution? Because to me, the Constitution is outdated.
Yeah, but rewriting it would require, I feel like a lot of that would just be opinion based, because you could believe that person A, B, and C are the perfect, because no one's perfect, but like the perfect candidates to go ahead and rewrite it. But I'm like, no, person B has problematic views, but I think that person F would be great. So I think that it's a matter of like finding the
balance,
the correct or the right people to actually go ahead and do that.
Because that's what was done back then, though. Think about it. It was a group of people, men, basically. Women,
no,
I don't even
basically, it was right. It was all white men, too.
See? So right then and there, women wasn't even included.
Correct.
A black wasn't even included as they relate to the terms, you know, because I can get funny with those terms. You can't be, you know.
But it's like, how do you go about the selection of picking the people who could potentially rewrite it?
That's an interesting thing.
Do you vote on it? Is it something like how you vote for presidency, or who you vote for like cabinets, etc.?
I think, honestly, we should have all walks of life redo it if possible. If that's just a dream that I would have, that all walks of life be able to participate. And then you categorize, when I say all walks of life, you categorize it like farmers. I think we need farmers. I don't think we need a bunch of politicians, personally. You know, because everything, a politician, and most politicians follow the money, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So I think we need more people, grassroots people, in my opinion, to rewrite the Constitution and so forth. That's just my opinion on it.
Do you agree with this comment?
What comment?
It would never happen because they wouldn't want any minorities having a voice.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. I would have to think on that because I don't like to just jump down the borough. I think that Lunch wrote that one. That's a good one. Good opinion. I don't find that's a wrong opinion. I just think that when it comes to society as a whole, we had to revamp things, in my opinion. And there's so much more that I would like. This is such a big subject matter that I would love to continue to talk about it, because that's the misconcept of being a minority, the verbiage of words, because we really are the majority.
It's just in the U.S.
It's just in the U.S. that we are the minorities. So word choices too play a part in the understanding of a lot of things too. And that's a good comment, though, Miss Missy.
I think never is an absolute terminology.
Right, and I don't like the word never.
And I don't necessarily disagree or agree with the statement. I do believe in change. I believe that anything is possible, that anything can happen. Whether or not I see it in my own eyes is another thing, though.
Because real quick, I thought it'd never be a president of color, black, and being president while I was born. And in 2008, I was shocked. So I try to try to go away from the absolutes of certain words and try to just remind myself of positive understanding. And I'm quite sure Lunch is a very conscious young lady and whatnot as it relates, but that's her opinion, and she has a right to that opinion. So I just believe that we need to take a focus, refocus, and really understand what's going on, because anytime you had to keep writing a law to replace a previous law that was in existence for years, decades, and even centuries, that's proven to us that those were wrong from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Had to be from the very beginning. And my thing, people, is just put yourself in an opposite person's shoes, right? Meaning, if your child get whipped by the police officer and should happen to die, think about your child. Think about how it would affect you, and vice versa, whoever's doing the whipping. Think about if that was your child being whipped, would you want that to happen? So we have to, in my opinion, start putting ourselves in these people's shoes. And don't get me wrong, police officers, I know it's a dangerous job that you have. I'm not disputing that, because we do have some mental illnesses that are out here that need to be tackled as well. All I'm saying, whatever it may be, with the judge hugging the lady that got 10 years for the killing of her neighbor in her apartment complex. Think about those things, right or wrong. How would you feel if it was done to you or did to you? Would you respond in that same manner? And that's the thing I think we tend to get away from, is how would you feel if it was done to your family member or done to you personally? Would you have that same outlook on it? Is because just because it's done to someone else's family, you have a different outlook on it. But say it was done to you or your family member, would you have that same disposition on it? And I think a lot of times we would change our mindsets if we know how to truly affect not you, your mother, your father, or anybody that you kid did near to you. So I personally, this is a challenge I personally want to put out there. And matter of fact, some people will answer your challenge about being forward.
That's awesome.
Thank y'all people that answered it for my daughter, giving back, and they didn't want their names to be known, but they did your challenge.
Awesome.
Anyway, my challenge is to put yourself in the other person's shoes and then tell me how you react to it and whatnot.
Really good challenge.
That's
All right, guys. As always, we go off the air, but our comments do not stop. Dad actually checks them faithfully. So go ahead and leave your comments down in the section below, and we will see you next Wednesday.